One of the problems that we have today is that we're not communicating with our own selves. We are so out of touch with ourselves that we don't really even know who the person is that is within this body, this physical form that we have. And so when you don't really know who you are, what you are, what's important to you, what makes you who you are, how could you respect yourself? How could you handle yourself with care? How could you look after what's really your best interest? So we need to be in touch with ourselves, and we need to be merciful to ourselves. Let both of the men and the women look to see what is it that they're really searching for in life. What are some of the best qualities that I could say about myself? That I'm loving, that I'm compassionate, that I care for others, that I have integrity, that I have a great personality, I'm humorous, I could also be serious, that I'm disciplined. What am I looking for then? When you have an idea of who you are, what you are, then you can look at the other person and say, you know what, these are the things that are most important for me in that person, that woman, or that man. This is the person that I would want to marry. And have a list. To be able to say that, for example, I want a person who loves God. I want a person who respects themselves. I want a person who's caring, who's compassionate, a person who loves others, a person who loves to spend time with other people, someone who also takes their mind seriously. It's not just about the body. Someone who wants to have a family, who loves children, someone who enjoys the outdoors, to have these things. And so now, when that opportunity does come to meet, you have something that you're going by. That if these most major and important points that you have, if they're up in your mind, or even better that you have them in written form, that you can now look to enter into this relationship in a controlled fashion.
What's happened to us in the marriage discourse is that we actually market ourselves. The boy and the girl, and even the families, they market themselves. So they turn the house into something it's not when they are coming over, when the in-laws are coming over. They turn themselves and their conversations into something that aren't genuine. That's not really a representation of who they are. How many families would come and say, we had no idea they were like this. We had no clue who we were dealing with. They were completely different people before. And this kind of scamming, which you would think would happen in the sales industry, is actually happening in the institution of marriage. And that's a crisis, as a matter of fact. Some of the more, I guess, forward-thinking families that aren't as conservative, quote-unquote, they say, okay, no, let the boy and girl talk to each other. Let them email one another, let them have a few conversations. But at this point, both of them are so, blind, and they're so interested in just getting the celebration and the new dress and the gifts and all this stuff. They're so caught up in the hype and all the congratulations they're getting and all the phone calls and text messages that even when they talk to each other, it's actually empty fluff conversations. And they see what they want to see in the spouse. They're not able to have an intellectually sound conversation because, the eye of love can't see. You're already infatuated with the idea, so you have a hard time seeing any flaws. And that infection actually lasts a little bit longer even after marriage, for the first couple of weeks. You can't see any flaw in your spouse. Even the way she sneezes, you're like, it's amazing. SubhanAllah, Allah really made us for each other. But then it starts wearing off and reality starts setting in. How come you never told me this or that or the other? I didn't realize you're this way or that way or the other way, So first, my encouragement to the families and to the young people that are looking to get married is to be mature in this process. Then the other thing I want to talk to is the elders, specifically the elders in our communities. You people are so worried sometimes about your messed up kids that you say, maybe if we marry him to a good girl, or we marry her to a good boy, things will work out fine. So all the really messed up things you know about your child, you don't tell anyone. You don't tell even the family that you're dealing with, and you keep it hidden as best you can, because if they found out, they wouldn't marry your child. And on top of that, of course, you're suffering from some kind of schizophrenia in which you tell yourself the lie so much that we have a good boy that you start believing it yourself. And in the face of reality, your child is coming home, that's not a child, it's a man. Your son is coming home at 2, 3 in the morning. He can't even stand up straight. Oh, he must have been making tahajjud. The tafsir seminar must have been late. Or, come on. A lot of times our parents know that the young man has a drug problem. He's got an alcohol problem. He's got a clubbing problem. And this is the reality of like the lack of foundation in many marriages. But I am saying, look, there's a reason these kinds of things are happening. And there's some really fundamental realities that we're choosing to close our eyes to, that we can't afford to anymore for the sake of our own sons and our own daughters.
The Prophet ﷺ simplified it, where he said in an authentic hadith, he says, when there comes to you that person, that suitor, the male, you find in him, in his religion, in his understanding, in his practicing of his religion, of Islam, and in his manners and character, that which pleases you, then marry them to your daughters, marry them to your sisters, marry them to those that are under your guardianship whom they've come to ask for. If you don't do it, there's going to be some serious problems and corruption. That's how simple. He didn't say if there comes to you the doctor, the engineer, the businessman, that if he has this much money, or that if his age has to be like this or like that. And understanding the issue of deen, naturally the person's going to have to be mature. He's going to have a sense of responsibility and accountability and discipline. He's going to have to be physically also mature. And there's going to also need to be that sense of having, the finances to take care of a family. But the main thing to understand is that all of that complements itself. It's not that the main thing we're looking for is to see what type of money he has so that he can treat my daughter like a princess. It's not about that. Islam kept it simple. The person's belief, their practice, their righteousness, and it's backed up in their manners. And that second part is very important. Because it's not about a person saying that they're practicing and they look like they're practicing, whether it's the male or the female. But in their speech, they're sour, in their personality, they're ugly. It's got to be that the two are together, really fortifying that you really are a believer, and it shows in the way you live your life. Well, in Islam, there's nothing to actually say that you have to first complete your college education and go into grad school and have finished up this career or that career before you get married. There's nothing in the Quran or in the Sunnah saying you have to first go to college before you can get married. Naturally, to have an education is very highly encouraged in Islam, and actually it's something that's a fundamental teaching in Islam. To be ignorant is not at all praiseworthy. It's on the opposite scale of being something that's highly discouraged. But at the same time, our brothers and sisters who want to go ahead and get their education and become successful people in this world, they need to balance things out. What is it going to mean for me if I delay marriage for another 4 years, another 8 years, when I turn 30-something years old, and then I'm going to look to want to try to settle down? There has to be a correct understanding. There has to be a placing of everything in its proper place. Islamically, we're supposed to love our parents and we're supposed to respect them, but at the same time, the parents are supposed to really recognize that they should be more interested in what's best for their kids, and the way that they may perceive the better person to be for their wife or their son, or a husband for their daughter, it may not really be what their son or daughter is looking for. So there really has to be a true sense of communication, a humbling between the two, so that this way they can look to make the best thing happen for their son or daughter. And this goes back to some of the standards that people hold in place for themselves. Where a girl, for example, who's very sensitive of her age says, I cannot marry somebody who's younger than me. And in doing so, she perhaps maybe excludes the person that would be the best husband for her. Or likewise, a husband who, the man who's looking to marry, but he doesn't want to marry somebody who's outside of his race, outside of his culture. So every time we look to limit our selection by self-imposed restrictions, whether it's age, whether it's culture and race, whether it's socioeconomic status of the person and educational level and so on and so forth, if we're not going to be looking at the core criteria and qualifications and we base it on these issues, then we're really harming ourselves and we're not in any way adding anything positive to this process of finding that right person. When somebody has in their head a fairy tale that they want to make into a reality, Yeah, waiting for that knight in shining armor to come sweep her off her feet, or waiting for that Hur al-Ain to descend from heaven that's going to be your Mrs. Perfect, and so on and so forth. This is something that has actually done a lot of harm to the relationships of Muslims. When they take Hollywood and Bollywood and try to make that into everyday living, they're actually committing a great injustice against themselves. Because when it comes to the physical things, yes, there should be physical attraction. She should be, attractive to you. He should be attractive to you. But to, at the same time, look to have the best of all these different qualities in a person. So we need to really look to put things back into a proper perspective if we're going to look to try to really be true to ourselves, and at the same time have a fulfilling relationship with whoever it is that this marriage is going to take place with. Love is a quality that is from Allah Azza wa Jal, as His name is Al-Wadud, the most loving, the most loved. And the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, he taught us, marry the women that are both loving and that will bear many children. So to find that wife and that husband who are going to be loving and are going to have those qualities, it's from Islam. But let's understand it in the proper context. It's not that you're going to have this person just from the beginning, you're going to feel this love that's going to sweep you off your feet, and that you're going to have this romance and passion the way that, whether it's movies or romance novels, the way that they portray it. That's really, in essence, the other L word, the four-letter L word, and it's lust. It's not really love. There's a big confusion between the two. Love in Islam is a required quality, and it's one of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He says in the Quran, from His miraculous signs is that He has created for you spouses just like yourselves, and that He has placed between the two of you love and mercy. So these are qualities that we need to have, but at the same time we need to put them in the proper perspective and understand it's not lust. It's not falling in love with the person's complexion and how handsome he looks, or how beautiful in her body shape and things of that sort. Love is a quality that really, through the relationship with time, after truly getting the ability to know one another and having the relationship established on the right principles, that's something that exists, but it's further nurtured and cultivated, so that it truly blossoms to what it needs to be through that relationship of marriage. There's fear within these individuals that's preventing them from taking that step. And that's the thing, they have to make that active decision. If they're making dua to Allah, they need to then allow Allah to guide them in the right direction. And part of that right direction is looking to have clearly what you're looking for, and then looking to get the proper methodology of finding that person. Get your family, your friends. And these things, honestly, when it comes to the cultures of different Muslims, these are some of the conflicts that take place, because normally in the countries back home, it's something that a lot of times there's still people that their parents are deciding for them who they're going to marry.
We as parents, sometimes we expect our children to listen to us, but we are unreasonable. We don't want them to marry someone for some silly, un-Islamic reason. And then we force them to marry someone whom they are not supposed to be marrying. Daughter tells you, Dad, I'm not happy. I don't want. You say, you have to. You don't know how much goodness they've done for me. Believe me, if you have imposed on your child that she marry someone whom she does not want to marry, you have committed a sin. And this is one of the reasons why the divorce rates are so high. And with us, we don't like to listen to advice. When it hits us, and it hits us hard at home, we still don't like to listen to advice. When it comes back to haunt us, we say, oh no.
Definitely, in order for someone to get married, they need to be stable. Why? Because you're now moving into a different stage of life. It's no longer you worrying about yourself or maybe living under the roof of your parents. This is now you starting your own family. And to do that, there has to be certain prerequisites, certain qualities and qualifications that are needed from both the brother's side and from the sister's side. And part of it is the financial, that you need to be able to take care of the basic needs. In general, if we're Muslims who are looking to try to fulfill our innate needs of marriage and companionship, and we want to do it according to what Islam teaches us, but there still needs to be that ability to make sure that you can take care of the basics, so that you're not getting married today and then breaking up and divorcing tomorrow because you don't have money to pay for an apartment, or to keep paying for the apartment, or for bills or things of that sort. I'm not talking about luxuries of buying fancy furniture and jewelry and things of that sort, which are materialistic luxuries, which aren't real basic needs. And so this is one of the things that really needs to be put into proper context, and hopefully it's understood by our brothers and sisters.
The high dowries.
The dowry, the mahar, basically the gift that is given to the wife by the husband. Sometimes you'll have the illusion that you're actually purchasing the person instead of actually marrying them. And that's just the dowry. And then you add on top of it all the other financial requests and obligations and burdens of jewelry and furnishings of an apartment and home and this and that, and the ceremony itself, it's just mind-blowing.
Today, when you want to get married, first thing you do is you ask the man, what do you have? What type of a job do you have? What car do you drive? Do you have a house? How much is your salary? What figure do you have? If not, we fight with the daughter and say, not this man. He's not good enough. Our fathers or grandfathers, when they got married, they were much happier than we are. And they married those who had absolutely no house, no shoes sometime. They were just honest, upright, pious people. And they were people who, the fathers of the girls knew that this person is so honest and so responsible that he will look after my daughter, even if he doesn't have something right now. But he's a responsible man. So they let them get married. They were happier than those in our generation who look for money prior to you getting married. So how is it? You will only be married at the age of 40, my beloved brother, because that is when you will own a house. Those who choose to look at wealth and wealth alone, and status in society and status alone, a lot of the times they doom their daughters into great depression. Yet they just want to save their names. That's why they got them married there. May Allah protect us. It's not always the case, but it is happening more often today than ever before. May Allah grant us the ability to seek guidelines from the messenger we claim to love so much.